holding that value of doing what you say you're going to do, and treating people the way you'd want to be treated, even when they don't do it, and even when you feel badly because you feel no one else does it.
And what I would love to know from you, Andrew, is what are your top 3 values in your personal life, and what do you make decisions based on? What's your filtration system? There's a lot of like buzzwords out there, like we're about alignment and this and that, but when it comes down to it and making your decisions that are very challenging or hard, what are the 3 values that really guide you in life?
I think there's one main value that probably covers a lot, and we can talk about some of the other things on a personal level. But in terms of a ethical values conversation in life and in business, for me, your word has to be your bond. That's an old school concept. We talked about capitalism earlier. My father would always say growing up, you can't have capitalism without ethics. If everyone's just out screwing everybody, that's not going to work. And that is a thing that's really been brought to my attention the more I travel, because you see, not to say that one country is more ethical than others, but certainly you see certain elements of people. When you deal with, I was in an expat community in one particular country, and it just seems like a lot of nonsense in this kind of business community where it's not your word is your bond. They say one thing and then make excuses. I think your word has to be your bond. People have to know they can trust you. Now, the values I'm also really exploring more now as I mature and I kind of get out of this kind of neurotic business building mode is you have to have a sense of self, and you have to have boundaries. And your word is your bond does not mean that people can violate boundaries. So I think those two go hand in hand. But something as simple as doing what you're saying to do. I just got an email yesterday from one of our media contractors saying, like, do we need to renegotiate our deal because I can't visit you and this and that. I'm like, I told you I was going to do it. I'm going to do it. Like, there's not to be a question. And I think that's such a rare thing for people, to where even people I've known for years, sometimes they just get in this frame of mind where it's like, well, what's going to happen? I'm like, I'm just going to pay you the way we agreed, right?
Yeah.
That's where I would start. And I'll tell you what, I'll tell you the other thing. I think that, especially guys, sometimes you do that and you don't get, it doesn't get reciprocated and you feel like an idiot. I think having the value to be able to be who you believe you need to be and what values you need to have, even when it's difficult, is the ultimate value. And this is something that I see out there where people will say, oh, I'm a nice person. And then, like, the moment they're challenged on something, they start shouting and screaming at the other person. No, you're not a nice person. The nice person is the one who can, hear conflicting opinions, who can take some criticism. And they're just like, oh, interesting. So maybe the value is just, self-awareness and honesty. And I don't need to label myself. But I think that's an important thing. It's just holding that value of doing what you say you're going to do, and treating people the way you'd want to be treated, even when they don't do it, and even when you feel badly because you feel no one else does it.
So I'm hearing integrity first and foremost, and then I'm hearing boundaries.
Yeah.
What else guides your decisions in your life?
Well, I mean, at a certain point, I've started to want to enjoy life. And I think that's where the boundaries come into place, right? Because you don't want everyone else to dictate what you're going to do. I think those are the main things. I don't think it's that complicated. But I also think go where you're treated best is a value, right? Those are the 5 magic words. And I think that is a boundary in a sense. It's a boundary, and you know what? I'm not going to live in your place where I have to have my crotch grabbed to get on an airplane. It's a boundary. So right. I think, it all comes back to the central elements.
So I'm picking up on the distinguishment between boundaries and standards and how they're so closely intertwined. But what takes what takes the action into this conversation is the self-awareness piece and the ability to do what you say and say, or say what you mean and mean what you say is really the conversation here.
Well, that too,
and, yeah, I appreciate you opening up like that, Andrew. So to finish us off with just one last question, a high-level thing for the listeners. Let's say that I'm an online coach and I have just made my first 100K year and I've got that pit in my stomach, I'm feeling the heat, and I'm like, all right, Andrew, what are my 3 next game plan steps to put myself in a better position so that I can actually experience the fruits of my labor on a long-term basis and go where I'm treated best?
Yeah.
What would be your 3 game plan steps for them?
Well, I think you have to understand your business in terms of, what needs to be put back into your business. For me, the beauty of a consulting business is generally it's a higher margin business. You're not like always buying more stock to where you have to constantly be, fueling the fire. What I would be looking to do is, number one, cement my personal financial situation. That would be having a pretty boring, bland emergency fund and just making sure that I'm personally taken care of. Number two, I would start to open up my mind. And so what I mentioned earlier was go on a plane, take a flight to Yerevan, Armenia, go to open the bank accounts, open up a bank account, put your money in there. And what you'll see is not only you'll start to immerse yourself in another culture, and you'll see, the center of Yerevan is actually much nicer than I imagined it to be. It's beautiful buildings, and people have great service, and there's nice options for restaurants and stuff like that available. But then you'll start to see 3 months later, 6 months later, 12 months later, my $100 is still there. It hasn't been sucked up by the vortex that everyone told me it would the moment I left the country. And then from there, I would focus on, optimizing my financial situation. So that would be diversifying. It would be other investments. I would start to look at the tax piece. If you make $100,000 a year in the U.S., you're probably paying 30 grand, 27 grand, something like that. Some of that is Social Security and Medicare tax, which is going to require a little bit more expense to eradicate. If you're a one-person consultant, then you're going to still want to start building a team for tax purposes, because a one-person business is harder to optimize than an actual company. It's kind of the business versus profession model. And so I'd focus on, how am I building my company out, and how am I, doing that in a way that aligns with, tax and everything else. But my first step would be getting my house taken care of at home. Then it would be stepping out of my comfort zone and starting that. And then it would be, figuring out what I'm going to do on not only the business building side, but the tax side, and how those two work together. It's a lot better, as I said, if you are at least 2 or 3 people in a company than just a guy. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.